Hey folks, Dave Brown here with the New Populist. Thank you again for joining me. So, it looks like we are on day two of this Ukrainian counteroffensive, and we have been expecting it now for several months. I mean, every day in the media talking about when is the Ukrainian counteroffensive going to come? Well, it's finally here. And the first impression is that it's not going particularly well. There was an article on CNN saying that it was costly and that the Ukrainians were taking pretty substantial losses. And matter of fact, on the Atlantic, we had Anne Applebaum. She's a neocon of the highest order, saying that the purpose of this counteroffensive was to demonstrate to Russia that continuing to execute this war would be costly. And so you can sort of see the narrative kind of changing from we're going to take back Crimea to we're just going to make sure or just try to make it press onto the Russians that if they keep fighting us, it's going to be not worth their time. So just pack it up, go home, or negotiate, whatever. And the Russians are not going to do that. If you want to have somebody negotiate or somebody pack up and go home, you need to leave them an out. And we haven't done that because we have placed sanctions up the wazoo on the Russians. We've cut them off from SWIFT, the financial system. Uh, we have done everything we can to isolate Russia. So at this point, they have nothing to lose by continuing on. And in fact, if they don't, they have a lot to lose. They have to make their point from their perspective that if you mess with Russia and try to use proxies to destroy Russia or to cripple Russia, we will destroy that effort. And unfortunately, the country being used as that proxy by the West is Ukraine, and Ukraine is getting destroyed. Now, about this offensive and the fact that it was sort of doomed for failure from the beginning, why is that? It's in my estimation, it's purely an issue of logistics, and that's all it is. So last summer, we had those two offensives at Kharkiv and Kherson, and the West, Ukraine, they were pretty happy about it. They got back some territory, and they earned it. Believe me, they suffered a lot of casualties doing that. But the issue back then for Russia was they simply did not have the manpower and the defensive preparations in place to man a contact line that goes hundreds of miles. So the Ukrainians, with their access to native intelligence, knew where the Russians were weak, were thinly manned, and they punched those areas hard, went through, and recaptured land. What has happened since then? September 2022, the Russians have their partial mobilization, 300,000 men, and they've spent the last several months building lines of defense. So a lot of people in Russia are going, why won't the Russians go on the offensive? And the answer is because they don't have to. Um, the pressure is on Ukraine to attack. So Russia said, okay, we were undermanned. Let's get our manpower up. Let's build defenses and wait for the Ukrainians to attack us. And when they do, we can slaughter them, which is essentially what is happening right now. There's always an advantage to not having a political timeline to have to work on. Zelensky is being pressured by the West, by NATO, by the United States to go on this offensive. In Russia, Putin and his government, there's no timeline. Their timeline is how do we win this conflict, not how do we give the impression that we're winning this conflict. And that's where I feel sorry for the Ukrainians because um, their activities are not dictated by them, what they want. It is the West always overhead, talking to Zelensky, phone calls, trips, to telling Zelensky, all right, you got to go, man. We gave you all this money, you got to go. Here's the equipment, you got to go. And so at some point, Zelensky has to go to his military. You guys got to go. And he even admitted, we don't have everything we need, but well, that's all we're going to get. So we got to get moving. And that's what's happening now. They're moving, and the Russians have been preparing for this for a very long time. Their artillery is locked in. Their air force is ready, waiting to go, and they are raining down hell on the Ukrainians. So Anne Applebaum said that they just have to make it uncomfortable for the Russians to make it seem like it's not worth their effort. Well, the Russians, they're prepared. They cannot go backwards. They're fully committed. If they go backwards, it's not just losing this war; it's potentially causing the collapse of their country. So they can't do it. So you can't have somebody who's in a corner who's has no other options. You can't push them to go. I guess we can just go home now. They don't have that choice, and that's what we're going to see coming over the next several months. Them absorbing this offensive, and then going back to what they've done in the past, which is incremental, just wiping out what's in front of them very slowly, because again, they're not on a timeline. And contrary to the thought of NATO that, or some of these people in the West saying that Russia is having this high, casualty rate. I've heard some clowns out there say that Russia is having four casualties, four KIA for every one Ukrainian, and that their strategy, because they have this larger population, is to keep charging forward because due to their population size, they can outlast the Ukrainians. If you do some simple math, this is ridiculous. Um, Ukraine has probably between 150 and 200,000 KIA, and that's a low number. So if you're going to try to sell to me that Russia has four times the KIAs as Ukraine, that would mean that Russia has between 600 and 800,000 dead. That number is preposterous. It's insane. It's ridiculous. But I've heard people say this, and I'm scratching my head going, if you're not a moron, you can do simple math. Go, well, this is not doesn't make any sense. The initial invasion force into Russia or into Ukraine was approximately 200,000 Russians, the Wagner, Chechens, DPR, LPR, and then the partial mobilization was 300,000. So if Russia had between 600 and 800,000 killed in action, there would be zero people right now in Ukraine. Nobody. They'd be all gone. And if there was that high level of casualty, we would see those pictures coming out of Russia of people protesting because, all of these people have been killed in action, all these funerals. We're not seeing that. What we are seeing is people in Ukraine on a daily basis being pulled off the street, thrown into vans, taken someplace to be trained for a few weeks before being sent to the front. That's actually what's happening. So this 4-to-1 KIA thing it's so ridiculous. But I've heard from people who are given a lot of credibility, and people are saying, "Oh, this guy, yeah, 4-to-1, yeah, these Russians are getting slaughtered. They're doing the wave tactic. They're sending waves of people, and they're just winning because they're willing to sacrifice so many people to beat the Ukrainians." It's preposterous. You have an artillery advantage. You have a air force advantage, air superiority. You don't need to do again wave tactics, wave formations. People like the image of World War I, blowing the whistle and we're all rushing out to be mowed down by the Ukrainians. What are we talking about here? This is nonsense. But people are saying that, but no, that's not happening. Unfortunately, it's the other way around. Ukraine is the one taking the heavy casualties. So this offensive, it's not going to do that much. Will they grab a few pockets here of some territory? Sure. Russia is always willing to fall back on their lines if it's not worth defending, because their strategy is more long term. They're not trying to hold every piece of land to the last man. That's not what they're trying to do. They're trying to wear down the Ukrainian military and absorb their this offensive, um, in a way that's minimizing their own casualties, and they'll fall back and just keep raining down artillery and these glide bombs and these rocket artillery. That's what they're going to do, and this might be the last gasp for the Ukrainians. And then the summer, it'll go back to that slow grind. The Russians just moving forward. That's what it looks like. Am I a military expert? No, but it's just the sort of the observation anyone can make if you're paying attention to what's going on, and the fact that NATO, the West, we simply can't or not willing to produce the ammunition that the Ukrainians need, and the Russian factories are working 24/7, producing missiles, producing artillery ammunition, artillery shells, and they're firing it out at a rate that's 4, 5, 6, 7 times that of Ukraine, with no end in sight. They can keep this up indefinitely. And I think about that because people are telling me, well, the West is so strong, we can out manufacture Russia. What my answer is that is, then why aren't we? So that means two things if we're not doing that. It either means we can't do it. And I think right now we're trying to get to the point where we're manufacturing 80,000 shells a month, where Russia's firing 20,000 a day. So we're trying to amp it up to 80,000 a month. So why can't we do more than that? I think we probably can, which means we don't want to. And what I've always said is that our goal is not for Ukraine to win, it's to keep Ukraine in the fight, to bleed Russia. That's what we've admitted in the past. Rand Corporation, Lloyd Austin saying, we're just trying to make sure that the Russians get hurt by having this war and executing this war. And that's what we're doing. So, sucks to be the proxy. And that's the truth here. I take no pleasure in pointing out the fact that Ukrainians are dying in these horrific numbers, because very smart, well, I don't know if I'm sure if I want to call it smart, but very cunning planners in the West said, who can we use against Russia? Well, we know that in Ukraine, they have this attitude toward Russia. They want to fight the Russians. You know what? Let's pump them up a little bit. Let's go there, give them some guns, say that they're awesome, that they're going to take on the Russians like McCain and Graham back in 2016 when they went to Kiev and told them, we're going to get you the weapons so you guys can go on the offensive against the Russians. Go out there, guys. Go fight. And then they got on their plane, flew back to D.C. to their nice $1 million homes, while somebody else's son is in a trench in Ukraine getting killed. The worst people out there are the ones that tell you to fight when they're on another continent, sitting in luxury. Never listen to that person because they don't care about you. Lindsey Graham in Kiev with Zelensky, yeah, best money we ever spent. The Russians are dying. You're listening to that guy? He's going to fly back. He's from South Carolina. You know what industry is big in South Carolina? Weapons manufacturing. Why do you think Lindsey Graham cares about Ukraine? A 60-year-old man or 70-year-old man in the U.S. Senate for the last 20 years, riding around in his limousines. You think he cares about the soldiers in Ukraine? No. They're tools to fight and die for U.S. geopolitical goals. So, Taiwan, pay attention, because you're next. We're going to come over there. We're going to schmooze. Man, Taiwan, you guys are awesome. Yeah. You're going to fight the Chinese. Here's some weapons. Oh, yeah, we got your back. Go fight them. You're fighting them. You turn around. Hey, where's America? And we're back here like, hey, go fight him. We're not going to step in ourselves. That's a direct confrontation. That's nuclear war, so we can't do that. But here's some more weapons. Go fight them. There's only 1.3 billion of them to fight. You're going to win, guys. We got your back. Look around. Look at our past conflicts. How does this end? With somebody else being screwed, not the United States. We don't die. We don't sacrifice anything. We make money off of it. Weapons manufacturing. We blew up the Nord Stream pipeline so we can sell more oil to Western Europe. That's what we do. Oh, we're smart. We're clever playing these games. I keep warning you out there, you other countries. We're not your friend. Friends fight with you. They don't stand behind you when you're fighting. Say, for example, you went to a bar and you and your buddy were there. A bar fight broke out. You're fighting. And you're thinking, well, me and my buddy, we're in a fight. You look back and he's against the wall, arms crossed, watching you. What are you going to think? Hey, man, like we're fighting here. You're not helping me out. There's a fight breaking out. That's America. We're standing in the back corner watching get your stomped out. And we're encouraging you. Yeah, go for it, man. Go for it. Well, come over here and help me. Nah. You can keep falling for that. I mean, come on. Think about it. And ironically, people accuse me of being pro-Russian and not, being anti-Ukraine. And I'm like, no, it's the opposite. I'm pro-Ukraine. But I see the reality and I see the slaughter. I'm going, what are you doing? You're sacrificing yourself for what you think is defending your country. And obviously you are. But there's other things at play. There always is. And you've been manipulated to fight a war that you can't win. But it's a win for the United States if it hurts Russia. And the irony, it may not be hurting Russia. It may have made them stronger. They realized their economy, they can do without the West. They thought they were going to crumble because the West pulled out. They didn't. Their military industrial complex is churning 24/7, makes everything they need. They're sitting on oil and gas and minerals and fertilizer and farmable lands. They realize a lot of things here. They can survive without us. And if they can do that, if they can survive without us, then we don't have any leverage over them. It doesn't exist. So Russia, they're actually, in the long run, could be better off for all this. That's the irony. We didn't hurt Russia. We may have actually, in the long run, helped Russia and hurt ourselves. And that is the ridiculous thing. Well, that's it for now. If you are new to my channel, please like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.